most famous vision in Game of Thrones history has been misread by almost everyone who watched it. And the crazy part? The answer was sitting right in front of us the whole time. Season 2, Episode 10. Daenerys walks into the House of the Undying in Korth to get her dragons back. She steps through a door and finds herself standing inside the throne room of the Red Keep. But something is very wrong. The roof is completely gone. The ceiling is shattered open, cold air is pouring in, and falling from the sky, covering every surface, every pillar, every step leading up to the Iron Throne, is what looks like snow. Daenerys walks slowly toward the throne, reaches out her hand, almost touches it, and then she stops. She hears something, she turns away, and she never sits down. That is the scene. Six seasons later, when she finally walks into that same throne room for real, it looks almost exactly like the vision, destroyed, open to the sky, a fine white powder covering everything, and she still does not sit on the throne. So what did the vision actually mean? Most people landed on the same explanation. The snow predicted the Night King, winter coming literally, the White Walkers marching south, taking King's Landing, freezing the throne. That was the popular read for years. It was clean, it was dramatic, and it was completely wrong. Here is what actually happened, and why the real answer is so much more disturbing. When the production crew filmed that scene, there was no ambiguity on set. The visual effects supervisor Stuart Bridson said in a behind-the-scenes video, "We snow up the whole throne room, then we have falling snow, so we will have foam machines which spray out foam with wind machines blowing snow across." He called it snow. Director Alan Taylor, on the DVD commentary for that episode, also called it snow. Emilia Clarke sat next to him during that commentary and agreed. Taylor even said the scene looked like Christmas. So in 2012, when that episode aired, the intention was clear. This was winter, the long night, the supernatural threat from beyond the wall. But then something happened. Between Season 2 and Season 3, Benioff and Weiss flew to Santa Fe and sat down with George R.R. Martin. He told them the endgame of the whole story. Not every detail, but the big moments. Jon Snow's parentage, Hodor's backstory, and crucially, where Daenerys ends up. After that meeting, the show changed direction. The snowflakes in that vision started to carry a second meaning. And by Season 8, that second meaning had completely swallowed the first. To understand the vision properly, you need to understand what the House of the Undying is in the books, because the show version stripped out most of what made it extraordinary. In A Clash of Kings, which is the second novel, Daenerys does not just see two visions. She walks through an entire palace of futures and pasts. The doors she passes contain the Red Wedding, years before it happens. A feast of slaughtered bodies with a wolf's head sewn onto a king. A throne room where a silver-haired man who looks like Viserys, but taller and with darker eyes, sits beside a woman nursing a baby and says, "He is the prince that was promised, and his is the song of ice and fire." That is Rhaegar Targaryen, with his wife Elia Martell naming their newborn son Aegon. The baby in that vision is not Jon Snow. It is Rhaegar's first son, the one who was murdered as an infant during the sack of King's Landing. But Rhaegar then adds, "There must be one more. The dragon has 3 heads." He was already thinking beyond that child, already planning for a third heir. Jon Snow, born later of Lyanna Stark in secret, was that third head. The vision does not show Jon Snow directly. It shows the obsession with prophecy that led Rhaegar to Lyanna in the first place, and there is a vision of a king on the Iron Throne, surrounded by dragon skulls on the walls saying, "Let him be king over charred bones and cooked meat. Let him be the king of ashes." That last line is the one nobody paid enough attention to. The King of Ashes, in the books, that appears to be Aerys, the Mad King, speaking about the sack of King's Landing. But it sits in the same chapter as Daenerys' journey to claim her destiny. George R.R. Martin does not put things in the same chapter by accident. He was already drawing a line between Aerys and Daenerys, between the madness of one generation and the danger of the next. The apple does not fall far from the tree. The daughter of the man who wanted to burn everything alive would eventually make the same choice. The show cut all of this. What survived in the TV version was just the throne room with the falling snow. But here is the thing. Even stripped down to that single image, the vision was still doing the same work. It was still warning her. Everyone focused on the snow. Nobody talked about the roof. The throne room ceiling is completely destroyed. Not damaged, gone. The entire structure above the Iron Throne has been blown open, and the sky is visible. In a medieval monarchy, the throne room is the most protected space in the entire kingdom. It is where the king sits at the centre of his power, surrounded by stone and soldiers and the weight of centuries. The ceiling above that throne is not just architecture. It is the idea that the crown is protected, that power flows downward, from the gods to the king to the people. The roof is the legitimacy of the whole system, and in Daenerys' vision, it is gone. The Iron Throne itself is untouched. It is still sitting there, ugly and enormous, exactly where it has always been. But the room around it has fallen apart, which is exactly what the Targaryen claim to power looked like by the time Daenerys was a grown woman. The throne existed, the dynasty did not. She was living in exile in a city across the ocean, her family's rule already over, the very concept of a Targaryen ruler something that Westeros had violently rejected. The throne was still there. Everything that was supposed to protect it and justify it had collapsed. That is what the open ceiling was showing her. The structure is gone. What remains is just a symbol, and symbols alone do not make a ruler. Now here is where the timeline gets uncomfortable. When that vision was filmed in 2012, Benioff and Weiss almost certainly did not know Daenerys was going to burn King's Landing. They learned the broad outlines of Martin's ending the following year, but what the show ended up doing was something more sophisticated, even if accidentally. When Daenerys finally walks into the real throne room in Season 8, after burning the city, the substance falling from that shattered ceiling is not snow. It is ash. The remnants of the people she killed to get there. The white powder coating the Iron Throne in the vision from Season 2 looked like snow. The white ash coating the real throne in Season 8 looked exactly the same. The vision told the truth in a language she could not read. She looked at it and saw winter coming. What it was actually showing her was the cost of her own victory. It was always a picture of what she would do, not what the Night King would do. This is the part that the show failed to explain well, but the books were clearly building toward. Daenerys' entire identity was built around a single idea. The Iron Throne is rightfully hers. She was raised on that belief. Her brother Viserys drilled it into her from childhood. She had been homeless, powerless, sold into marriage, watched people she loved die, and kept moving forward because of that one fixed point, the throne, her birthright. The problem is that believing you are the rightful ruler of everything is exactly the kind of thinking that makes people dangerous. Aegon the Conqueror did not ask the kingdoms of Westeros whether they wanted to be conquered. He came with dragons and fire and made them submit. Daenerys inherited that legacy and spent years telling herself she was different, that she would break the wheel, that she would not rule through fear, and then the moment she faced real resistance, real loss, real grief, she did exactly what her father would have done. The vision in the House of the Undying was not showing her the end of winter. It was showing her the end of the Targaryen myth. The idea that the Targaryens had a God-given right to the throne, protected by dragons and destiny. The ceiling over that right had already fallen. What was left was just a chair made of swords that anyone powerful enough could claim. She was not the rightful queen. She was the next person willing to burn enough things to take what she wanted, and the vision knew it, even when she did not. There is one more layer here that most people miss. After Daenerys leaves the throne room in her vision, she walks through a door and comes out on the other side of the wall. Snow is falling. There is a small tent in front of her, and inside the tent she finds Khal Drogo and their son Rhaego, the son who died before he was born. She walks through a door and she's suddenly standing at the place where Jon Snow has spent years of his life. She reaches toward her dead husband in a frozen landscape. She's standing exactly where Jon Snow exists. Some fans read this as a prediction that Daenerys would go north, which she did. Some read it as a prediction that she would lose a dragon north of the wall, which also happened. But there is a simpler reading. The wall separates her from everything she wants. On one side is the throne she almost touched. On the other side is Jon Snow, who is literally made of ice and fire, a Stark and a Targaryen. His claim to the Iron Throne was not just equal to Daenerys's. It was stronger. She spent 7 seasons fighting for a throne that, by the laws of Westerosi succession, was not hers to claim in the first place. She walked away from the throne in the vision because she heard something outside, and she went looking for it. She walked away from the throne in real life because Jon Snow stabbed her in the heart. Both times she came so close. Both times something pulled her away. The vision was not random. It was the entire arc of her life compressed into 3 minutes of television. This is why the frozen throne room scene remains the most underrated moment in the whole show. Not because it was mysterious or beautiful, though it was both of those things, but because it told Daenerys exactly what was going to happen to her, and she walked through it like it was someone else's story. She saw the throne room destroyed. She saw herself alone in it. She saw herself reaching for the throne and being unable to take it. Every single element of that vision came true. She was alone in that room because she had pushed away or outlived everyone who loved her. And Jon Snow, who waited on the other side of the wall her whole life, was the one who ended her story. The House of the Undying showed her the whole truth in Season 2. It was just encoded in a language that looked like winter, when it was actually showing her exactly what kind of fire she carried inside her. That ambiguity is either genius or accident. Based on how Season 8 went, most fans lean toward accident. But either way, the result is a scene that predicted the ending of the show 7 years before it aired. Daenerys spent her entire life chasing a throne she saw in a vision. She never once stopped to ask why. In that vision, the room around the throne was already in ruins. She never asked who destroyed it. She assumed Winter did. She never considered that Winter was her. If this broke your brain a little, that is what a good rewatch does. The clues were always there. The vision in Season 2 was the whole story. We just needed 7 years to see it clearly. Drop a comment telling me which vision from the House of the Undying you think was the most accurate prediction of what actually happened. And if you are the kind of person who actually pays attention to the details that everyone else misses, subscribe, because this channel is built for exactly that.